he and his wife were at home after supper one time when a neighbor lady came to the door to borrow a cup of sugar. And as his wife looked out over the neighbor lady's head, she saw the pinkish orange light, which she recognizes now too. She's seen it enough times, she knows what it is. It's Bill's friend. So he says, Bill, your friend is out here. And he came and looked. He says, by golly, it is. He said, I think I'll get my jacket and go out and take a better look at it. It was flying what they have now recognized as a peculiar triangular pattern along the power lines that run down the Ashley River there. And so he got his jacket on and binoculars, put them around his neck, and walked out the door in his little trailer park where his trailer home was parked, and across a shallow, nearly dry, damp ditch and up onto a railroad track that ran about 10 or 15 feet above the level of the trailer park. He got up on the track and started walking down the track, watching it flying these triangular patterns over the power lines ahead of him, probably 2 or 3 miles away, which is not in the air, that's not very far. And he had his binoculars out looking at the object when it dropped out of the binoculars. It dropped like a stone. And he lowered the binoculars to see where it crashed, and he saw it just over the water of the Ashley River at water level, and he thought, oh my God, it's crashed right into the river. When at that point it approached and filled the sky like that. And it came so fast and so big and so close, he shied back like that and caught his foot on the rail of the railroad track and began to fall. And he put his hands out to see what, there's a jagged rocks down there. You can get skinned up pretty good to see what he was falling on, and he noticed he was not falling. He was rising away from the rocks, and the reeds, tall grass, was blowing away from him in waves. And he looked back, and he's above the railroad track, and he's going up in a blue beam of light.
I was about like this, just looking at it, and then I just fell backward like this.
Yeah,
and at this point, I stopped falling.
Oh,
That's what I couldn't understand, because
here,
like this, and then the light was all the way around me, and I went to push my hand through, and I couldn't.
Was it
I
here?
couldn't move. Yeah, right at this spot.
by this spot.
Because the object filled the area from that bush to that bush. It just filled the area.
The light came from looked like it came from the edge. Didn't come. At first I thought it came from the bottom, but after the hypnosis and after the recall, I realized that it didn't come so much from the bottom as it did from the edge of the object.
The rim, around the rim.
He said that the light felt like a low voltage electrical current, just like that, a cyclic tugging up the beam of light until, and he looked up, and it looked like it went into a cloud. The beam was so coherent, he put his arm out, and the arm went out of the beam, and he could pull it back in. It's in the beam again. He didn't touch anything going through. And he rose up, and when he got to the end of the cloud, he passed out and woke up on an examining table. And that's the time in between. He didn't remember anything. Of course, when he first came back, he didn't remember a whole lot of that either. That took time to develop the details by stressing his memory to get it.
First thing I remember looking at was this bar of lights flashing slowly above my head. Now this is what the bar of lights look like. Laying on a table, and your head is up here,
Yeah.
and you're looking up. You see blue, green, red, blue, green. Green, blue, red, green, blue. Back and forth. Flash, 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 flash. And it was doing this. And the slower this went, the more conscious I became. The more able to wake up and look around me. What I saw when I woke up, it's hard to really sometimes grasp, but it was like I thought in my mind there were doctors, or I'd been hurt. I was falling when I remembered the train tracks. I didn't remember the object as much as I remembered falling at the train tracks. And I remember falling, and I thought, oh, I must have broken my back. Somebody must have found me, and I'm in a hospital. And all these thoughts were racing through my head until the 3 people that were standing there turned and looked at me. And I had noticed that before they had turned, they were looking at this bar of lights flashing on the ceiling, and they were looking at a box that seemed to be off to the side at my feet. And the box was connected to the bed. You could tell it was connected by wires to the bed I was laying on, or the table, or whatever it was. And when they turned and looked at me, it was like all kinds of emotions just surged to the surface at once. Now this is a sketch of what I believe I saw standing next to my bed, or table, or whatever you want to call it. 4.5 feet tall, with a red garment, looked like a pullover jumpsuit, not pajamas, more military looking. And the eyes were spaced apart like ovals with circles inside, dark circles. And the occupant, when they told me to get up, and it was okay. I heard the voice, but I did not see the lips move. I heard it as clear as you hear my voice.
You heard it in English?
In English. It was in English. Yeah. Perfect English. Not accented, not deep, not high, just English.
Mm-hmm.
I felt afraid because I didn't know what was going on. I felt like this is totally foreign to everything I believe. What is going on here? Why am I here? What is this? All these thoughts going through my head, and all he could say was, "Don't be afraid." You know, it's like all my emotions and fears were just tossed aside by the comforting assurance of what he said to me. Just, don't be afraid, have no fear, or something to that effect. Come, the time is limited, or something about like that. The object itself is like a round pancake shape with a dome on top and a dome on the bottom.
Right.
But it looked sealed in metal. In other words, you didn't see no windows or no holes or nothing. It moved in a circle above, I'd say about 800 to 1,000, maybe 1,500 feet above the ground. And it moved in not as obvious triangles, but kind of in a flowing, graceful, dynamical fashion. I mean, just sliding across the sky, you know. Not doing anything that would give it an impression that it would lose control. In spite of its erratic behavior, you could tell it was in total control of itself. I mean, there was just, it was the most one of the most beautiful displays of aerodynamics I've ever seen, as far as being involved in this subject.
So you tried to take a picture?
I tried. The first shot, I believe the first shot I took came out empty sky. It was moving so fast. I mean, it would go up like this and come back like this. Come around like that. And just watching it was, you know, it was hard. Because when it would go that way, I'd run across the field, and I'm trying to get it in a viewfinder. And I took about 4 or 5 shots like that. And I believe 2 or 3 of them came out, and 2 came out empty sky.
They took him to a control panel and sat him down in one of the seats. His escort, who is speaking to him in his language, he hears it in his language, he hears it in his ears, just like surround sound. And he tells him, look, and they pointed to the screen, and another ship just like the one they were in joined them. And then the 2 ships went rapidly again south over continents, or over countries and continents, topography, geography changing, just like it's unrolling rapidly. And they approached ground again, the surface, down over Argentina. They took him again to an underwater facility in the Rio Sal, which runs out of a big freshwater lake, a big lake in northern Argentina. And the river runs through Santa Fe, a little town, not such a little town, a big town of Santa Fe. And his escort standing beside him. Now, the escort's not buckled into anything. He's just standing there, and Herrmann is sitting in a seat, but he's not fastened in either. And the craft he's in tilts down at an angle and goes into the water and goes under the water. And there's no inertial change to him. He feels no inertial changes, and his partner's still standing there beside him. And the partner touches him on the shoulder and says, "We were observed over Santa Fe. There will be reports in the paper tomorrow about UFOs." And they went to the underwater facility, and they're being explained to him that they installed this facility to carry out certain hydrodynamic tests in our water because our water was different from their water.
On the way back, they showed me the reactions of people observing their craft. And he said, "Walk over here." And I walked up to looked like a cross between an open window and a television set. It looked like a TV in that it was like this, but it looked like an open window that I could just stick my hand through it, is what it looked like. And I looked through the monitor, and you could see there was a road, there was trees on both sides of the road, and it looked like an orange grove or some kind of big field. And there was a road running adjacent to it.
and there was 2 cars pulled over. One was a Pinto station wagon, a Ford Pinto station wagon, and the other one was a Buick Electra. And there was a lady in the Pinto, and there was a man in the Buick. And the lady was standing outside the passenger door looking up like this. And the man was just standing there like this. And I'm standing inside this object looking at that, and it was like it zoomed up on the people. And he says, now watch what happens. The one that was next to me, he said, watch what happens when we move closer. The minute he said that, you saw the girl. It seemed illogical, but you could tell it was out of fear. She ran around the front of her car, jumped in the passenger side, reached over there and locked her door. He did, the man standing up, he just calmly, looked like he was trying to keep his cool, just sat down and got in the car and locked the door. Now, he says, now watch her. She's going to hold the lockdown. And the only indication of any hostility was what he said next when he says, a foolish gesture if we wish to direct observe.
After the examination and they're escorting around the ship, as they're starting to walk through the ship, his host, his guide, said that they would like him. He said, I wonder if you could make some arrangement with your government to release a damaged vehicle and one of our damaged ships and the bodies of our people. And he said, oh, I don't have any connections like that. There's nothing I could do for you there. I don't know anybody. I don't have any, I'm a nobody. There's no way I can help you. He said, why don't you do it yourself? And the alien said, we have tried. They said, we sent an emissary to try to negotiate a release. They tried to capture the emissary. He successfully escaped, got in his ship and took off. They tried to shoot the ship down. He said, they're too hostile. We can't deal with them. We're looking for another way. And he said, well, how did they crash anyway? And they told him that they were lost in the western part of your land, they said in quotes, and that the first one they lost was a big surprise to them. And then they noticed that there was a beam, an energy beam being transmitted in the area there, and they thought that it was a new weapon that we had used against them. And when they lost the second one, they became very concerned because they think we're shooting them down, and they had even gone to the trouble of contacting other associated space traveling intelligences to consult with them on the nature retaliation should take for our hostile actions. And while they were doing this, they noticed that the beam continued to operate, that the weapon continued to fire and was running in a circle for, when it was running, and it wasn't aimed at anybody, and they decided that it was not a weapon, it wasn't what they thought it was. They calculated, though, that the ships went out of control when that beam locked on the ship, on the craft, and stayed on for 90 seconds or more. The computer control system would burn out and go into automatic emergency landing mode. And they didn't have any control of it at all. And they devised a form of shielding, and changed their flight pattern to this sharp angular change in direction that Herrmann was reporting, so that the radar could not lock on and stay on for 90 seconds or more. It couldn't stay on for more than 2 or 3 seconds. And they didn't lose any more ships after that.